When I left the military, I wasn't sure what I could bring to business. And if you've got a clear vision, and ours is decarbonising transport, it's really easy to say, it's really easy to understand. People can go, yes, that's what I want to do. Yeah, 7 years of no pay, 24/7, 365. So one of the big lessons I've taken from the military is if it works, you should do more of it. And if it hasn't worked, stop doing it. You can be profitable and high tech and green. This is why diversity for me is a big enabler. I just want to leave the planet in a better place for my children.
Hello, and thank you for joining us on the podcast today. We have with us John Moffat, founder and CEO of the Structural Battery Company. John, would you mind telling us a little bit about what you do?
Sure, thank you for having me. So if anyone doesn't know, I'm super nervous about this, so let me get it on tape now. But yeah, I'm a retired Royal Marines commando. I sort of retired in 2013, having served 16, 17 years. Went into the energy sector, and then I had to move abroad. My wife is a civil servant, and to be eligible for promotion, we had to take an overseas job. So we moved to Nigeria in Abuja for a couple of years, and I was a house husband and got bored and had an idea. And so then came back to the UK to follow that idea up, studying for an MSc in Advanced Motorsports Engineering here at Cranfield University, and used my thesis as an opportunity to explore the idea and see if it worked, because it was either the best thing since sliced bread or technically, it was a flop. It could be done. I started a business, and I've been based in Cranfield since my master's degree in 2020.
Amazing. So, firstly, could you explain what is a structural battery?
Sure. So just to go back a little bit, I went to give a talk to some 6th year students in London. A friend's head of physics, and he said, "Oh, could you come down and tell the boys and girls what a structural battery was?" And so I sent them the question, "What's a structural battery?" Obviously. So when I walked in the room, they would know, and everyone has it the way NASA does it, which is to embed the chemistry into a composites layup so that the skin becomes the battery. And I was like, oh, right, okay. So nobody's Googled the Structural Battery Company, because that's not how we do it. But Williams Advanced Engineering used to fill battery modules, and it was that module box that was a structural battery. Tesla use a structural foam, and so they squirt around, and it kind of becomes a solid lump, and then that's the basis of their structural battery. And the way we do it is we bond together cylindrical cells into a hexagonal pattern to be the core material of a sandwich panel. So you can then put the shear panels around the core and transfer the mechanical loads that are experienced by the vehicle, whether it be a car, a drone, an eVTOL, a ship, and those shear panels are working really hard because the core material is separating them from the neutral axis.
And why have you decided to do it this way? What is the company created to do?
So that goes back to the idea when I was on one of my runs, being a house husband and father, why were electric vehicles not selling better than they were? And it was like, well, they're heavy, so people have got a bit of range anxiety, and they're quite expensive. And so, it was during the run, I was like, well, I remember the days of kit cars, and if you're my age, then you'll think, oh, yeah, that's a space frame with glass fiber and a V8 engine. And if you're a bit younger, you were like, no idea what he's talking about. But then Formula One. So a bit more exotic materials, carbon fiber in the honeycomb. So you get the really light, really stiff, but a bit more expensive way to create structures. And I was like, I wonder if you could combine the two, the sort of the design engineering with the cheaper materials. And at first I thought, I'll just put the chemistry inside these hexagonal core materials that already exist, and I'll just cut open the cells, pour it in, and then I'll connect it somehow. And I thought, that's going to be really tough. And I thought, well, why am I doing that? Why don't I just make hexagonal pattern out cylindrical cells that already exist? And I thought, yeah, that's a really good idea. I should do that. And so I tried it. I googled it. Was anyone doing it? Nobody was doing it. And it's like, right, okay, this is either brilliant or actually somebody's tried this and it couldn't be done. And so that was the origins of how structural batteries came around in my head in 2018.
And why is a structural battery better? I assume it is better than a normal battery.
Well, if you speak to me, it's the best thing since sliced bread. So there's a number of advantages, and they're based around being able to combine the characteristics of electrical and mechanical. So you get lighter. If you take the systems approach, a holistic approach, you are doing more than one thing with the thing that you've got, and therefore you get to take something out. So with a structural battery, for example, and if I take the EV supercar that we built with Gardner Douglas, we got to take out some of the steel space frame because we put in batteries in that space, and we saved 60 kilograms in the space frame, like for like. And then when you take into account that you can get a 500 brake horse electric motor that weighs 30 kilograms versus 250 kilograms for a 500 brake horsepower internal combustion engine, your weight savings you're in a virtuous circle. Your weight savings start to help, and if you get lighter, then you don't need as many batteries because you're already lighter, and so you get out the vicious circle into the virtuous circle.
So apart from Tesla, which you just mentioned, if I see an EV car on the road, have they got a structural battery typically or not?
No, they won't. They'll have, what you tend to see is just cars that have got batteries in crash-proof boxes, and then they're loaded into the chassis in a space that's available for them. So you can imagine, pick any car manufacturer. We've got this billions and billions of pound factory, euros or dollars. Pick your country, and then they're like, we used to put engines in there. Let's take that engine out and let's put a battery in there and a motor in the back. And then that's clearly how it started, wasn't it? And then you get this kind of all the weight was in the front, and now you've got even more weight in the front, so your handling's compromised. And so we need to get a better handling characteristics. Then Tesla, let's make a skateboard chassis, let's put them all on the ground, front to back, and what a great idea. Let's make the whole floor of the car a battery pack. And now Tesla have gone to structural batteries, so actually there is a car manufacturer that does it. But the risk to Tesla, like anyone who puts their batteries on the ground, is for an object damage coming from underneath. So what's on the road, is a drain cover or something loose, because there's just a risk there to damage the cells, which then leads to some catastrophic event. But the number of catastrophic events with battery electric is, it gets a disproportionate amount of the publicity in comparison to combustion fires from internal combustion engines. Right. There's a huge, you wouldn't think it from the news, but there's a huge difference. Even when you take into account the number of electric vehicles on the road in comparison to the number of internal combustion engines on the road, even when you level that out as a proportion to each other, there's still a massive difference.
Yeah. So take us on your journey. You're running in the streets of Nigeria. You've got this idea, you've done some work, you've assessed that there's a way forward, but going from that to running and owning a business, that's quite a challenge. So what did you do? How did you get to that point where you actually had people putting money in, you were making batteries, you get clients? That's the thing that's always interesting, because lots of people have ideas, but turning them into business ideas that actually generate revenue is much harder.
Yeah, and this is where theory and reality, there's a big gulf. Yeah. And like you say, lots of people have ideas, but it's founders who basically take that idea and then run with it. And I suspect that most startups, it's the founder who has the idea because they're just daft enough, and they've got the perseverance to just go when other people would say, on the balance of probability, actually, I just need to give up and go do something else. So it is tough. It's definitely tough. I mean, 7 years of no pay. So I've been dependent on my wife's salary. The family have been of long hours because you never stop thinking about it. It's 24/7, 365. and the risks that go with it, all your family savings to be able to start the business. And then there's bootstrapping is I think the terminology used, which is no pay to keep you going. And then you rely on your family and friends. So everyone that's joined me at the business, they're not getting paid either. We're all on the same wage, and it's not very much. And because I'm older, so are my friends. They're all been there, done that, got the T-shirt. They've all got mortgages. They've all got families to sort of support. And so it's kind of your whole life, including your friends and your family. And so, it's not just the studying, going back when I'm the oldest person in the class by twice as much as the second oldest person in the class, the only one to have children, I think I was, to go back to the university in your very late 40s, continual education apparently. And then taking to start the business, starting a business was relatively easy. I mean, it's a kind of go to company's house and £12 later you've got a business. It's then the annual returns, and you guys will know better than I do. That's got to be paid for. Where's the money for that? And so that sort of recurring cost came from my military pension. So I get a small amount on a monthly basis, and that safety net was the thing that enabled me to make the decision that I could go for it. And so, and then there's getting your friends and family to help. Your friends will be some of your engineers that you've worked with before, and they're like, do you know what? I'm fed up with this. I love what you're doing. And it's not just the technology; it's the vision of the business. And if you've got a clear vision, and ours is decarbonising transport, it's really easy to say, it's really easy to understand. People can go, yes, that's what I want to do. And even in the context, even now, people are saying, actually, do you know what? Green economy is costing too much. It's costing the country too much. We're making the country bankrupt. I think the narrative has got to change, because you can't not do it. The consequences of not doing it are far too severe. And so I think the narrative needs to be around profitability, it needs to be around high tech, and it needs to be about green economy. And so, and the numbers, even the economics of it since the 1990s have shown that the UK economy has grown and we've greened at the same time. And people seem to think it's an or sort of statement, and it's not, it's an and. You can be profitable and high tech and green. And that's, for me, the key. And then getting a patent, the technical bit, I originally thought I'd just be first to market and, keep a small business, be really agile and innovative, and, we'll just beat everyone on that kind of skill set. And when I'd done the Impulse program over in University of Cambridge, where a 3-month course where they teach you to be an entrepreneur. And we had the discussion, and they said, if you want investment into a technology business, you must have a patent. It must be defensible, otherwise angel investors just won't invest. And it's like, okay, that's that plan gone. I need to get patents. So, I then set about saving the money to be able to do the patents. And our first patent came through 2 years after we established the business, and it came through last year. And that was our first one, second one shortly after it. And that's significant costs. And when you're in that funnel of patents, there's no going back. Once you're in, that's it. You stop paying, you've made it public. Anyone can use that technology because you've made it public, and you're no longer defending it. So it's a big commitment. When you're in, you're committed.
Yeah.
And what was the experience of getting a patent? Because I've kind of heard mixed things about this, that some people have said it takes a long time, very expensive, very difficult, and then others have said, there's tricks that you can do to speed things up. What was your experience?
The former. It was really expensive, really long, and really difficult. But that it was certainly worth doing, because if it was easy, everyone would have done it. And I remember, I've had to speak to the patent examiner twice for our first patent, and there were great conversations. So that you submit it, what you want to patent, and we wanted structural batteries as a novel way to make these batteries using these cylindrical cells to create a sandwich panel. And so, it came back from the examiner, who's got a PhD in battery chemistry, so no dafty, and said, "Yeah, John, great idea, but your cylindrical cells are neither novel nor new, so patent denied. Can you persuade me otherwise?" And I'm like, "Well, yeah, I get what you're saying, but that's not the novel and new bit. It's making this sandwich panel, that you can integrate into carbon fiber monocoques, and it'll take the load." "All right, okay, let me go away and do a bit more research and come back to you." "Yeah, John, yeah, I've looked at your carbon fiber monocoques and your sandwich panels. They're not novel or new either. So patent denied, unless you could persuade me otherwise." And I'm like, "Oh my God, here we go again." I said, "So either of them, taken separately, are neither novel and new. But can you find me anyone who's made a sandwich panel using cylindrical cells?" "Ah, I get it now. No, that is novel and new. Patent granted." And exactly. And every time your patent attorney writes to you to say the examiner's got a question, that's another 6 minutes worth of email and another a tenth of an hourly cost.
Yeah.
And so that bill soon rises. So, to all founders out there, when they say a patent costs you £5,000, that's not strictly true. There's a lot of I found there's a lot of backwards and forwards, and it can become a much bigger bill. So last year, I think we spent £67,000 plus VAT on patent costs.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. That is more than 10% of the money I've raised, and both through angel investment and the revenues we've received and my sort of savings. And that's last year. We've got the same bill this year plus more, because
Are these new patents? Because I'm not overly familiar with patents. So every time when you're spending each year, this is on a new patent, or is this for the existing patent?
So we've submitted 4 patent applications so far.
Right.
2 have been granted by the UK IPO.
Right.
And so 2 are still pending. And out of the 4 patents, the 2 that have been granted, in fact, actually 4 have gone forward to the PCT, and so that we can get the international, we pick our jurisdiction on which countries we want to be covered in. The 2 that's already been granted, we've already given 4 territories, so North America, Europe, India and China.
Right.
And so the separate applications got to go to those 4 jurisdictions or territories. The other 2 patents that haven't been, or are still pending, have not gone to that stage just yet. But once you're in, you're committed.
Right. But having that patent then gives you, as you say, makes you more attractive to potential investors.
Yes, without it, we wouldn't get the investment.
Right.
And with it, we have the chance of getting the investment. And apparently, there's strong patents and weak patents. Who would know? You thought a patent was a patent. But this is all learning for a founder.
Right. So what stage are you at? Are you fundraising at the moment?
I think founders are always fundraising. I'd love to be doing the technical bit.
Yeah.
But the sort of my journey is tell investors what I'm going to do and ask for the money. I get the money, and then I do what I said I was going to do. And if that's all successful, I've run out of money, but I've done what I said I'm going to do, and then they get some more. And the business value's gone up. You've de-risked it, and that risk is all around the technology to start with. So there's proof points. Can your battery stand mechanical load? Can it stand crash? Axial and radial compressions. Can it do the torsional stiffness? Then there's electrical bit. Can you go up? Is it a high energy dense battery? Is it power dense? What is it? How much does it weigh? There's a bunch of technical questions. Can it be certified? And so you just got to take bite-sized chunks and say, right, I need £250,000 to do that. These are the things I'll achieve, and then you hopefully get the money, get to achieve them. You've run out of money, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is great. I've done what I said I was going to do. Technology works so far, but I've got no money. And then you go back and say, well, actually, the company's de-risked the technology in these areas. The business value's gone up, and nobody tells you how much. You got to make it up, and it's a bit like how much is your house worth? Well, it is what somebody will pay. Yeah. And that circumstance is constantly changing. Some in rosier climates, pre the pandemic, business values were, easier to come by, and people were like, oh yeah, I'd like to invest in this technology, it's a great idea. And now it's like, there's a lot of competition out there, you're not the only one doing this, and and the narrative changes with the economics, the global economic climate. So yeah. So we're always raising, currently £300,000. If anyone wants to invest in the structural battery company,
For anyone out there.
it's a great deal.
Yeah.
So what are some of the main kind of lessons that you feel like you've learned since you started the business? Is there anything that you would kind of pass on to people who are thinking about starting a business that might help them at the kind of early stage?
So I think from my background in the military, when I left the military, I wasn't sure what I could bring to business. I kind of made the assumption that I would never have the camaraderie that I had in the military, and I'm leaving that behind. And that, in a business world, the greater risk that you took, the more reward you would achieve. My first job was in a regulated business, and that blew the first assumption out of the water, where, regulations mean you can't take risk, and actually the rewards are static because they're all set by the regulator. And the second one, I joined a great innovation team within SP Energy Networks, friends to this day, and actually a great bunch of people. And so, it's a different type of camaraderie, but it's still really, really good. And in business, it's just the get up and go that everybody in the military has, and it's that the self-discipline and self-awareness to know what you can do, know what you can't do, and if there's nobody around you who can do the things you can't, then guess what? It's up to you. And okay, I'll give it a go. How hard can it be? And you don't have to be perfect. You just got to give it a go. And I suppose knowing when you need to stop just giving it a go, and you need to, when there's more value in you concentrating on something else and just paying for that service. And, an FD would be a great example of when to stop doing your own accounts and give that over to a professional, because my time is better spent concentrating on the things that I am good at, because the FD can pay their own wages in R&D tax credits, in VAT returns, there's a number of other ways. Just the being accredited gives the business a credibility to investors that making the same assumptions, putting it on paper, just doesn't bring. So any lessons, if you've got an idea, give it a go. What's the worst that can happen?
That's a great one. And we have heard it from other guests we've had on the podcast of this. And I think that's maybe partly what is maybe in an entrepreneur, is that, wanting to just try, not maybe scared of failing as well.
I think that's one of the key sort of characteristics of an entrepreneur. I know that as a sort of proud Scotsman, if I'm going to pay my money, I want to make my own mistakes. And so I suppose that's a lessons learning thing. Great military lessons identified, lessons learned. Look around, look at the research, who's done what, and then just start where they stopped. And that means nobody else has done it. So if I make a mistake, then it's a new mistake, not a repeated mistake. And that's how I spend my money. And if it works, that's great. I suppose always have a plan B. And being able to time travel. That's another thing.
It's quite a unique skill.
Yeah. It's very helpful, though. If you can project yourself forward. So an example would be, we're going to Paris Air Show in June this year. And and sort of to prepare for Paris, what are we going to take? What information? What are key messages? How much space do we have? It's exhausting. And one of the things to do is to sort of project yourself forward to September, and then look back. And Paris has been an absolute wonderful. You're knackered, but you've got this smile. You wake up. The load of organising Paris is gone, and it's just euphoria. What's caused the euphoria? Oh, we've spoken to people. People understand the technology. Somebody said, "Yeah, John, this solves my problem. I'd really like to know more. Here's my card. Let's sign an NDA. We'll do a small project to see, structural batteries in my application and see the problem it solves. And, you know, and if it works, you know, we've got all those people who've got the same problem, and we're just going to help solve these problems. And it's like, that's, you know, there's time travel. Right. Okay. I need to take something that people can understand what structural batteries are. And actually, I don't want a video. I want to take something real. So people don't have to imagine structural batteries and what they are. They see a structural battery and they can imagine how it works in their application. And so it's like, right, okay, that's what I need to do. How do I differentiate myself from the competitors? Well, I don't know. Well, you know, I'll have to think about that. How did we stand out? And it's taking physical stuff, really. People like to get their hands on. I imagine a lot of engineers go to the air show and they just want to see stuff, open it, play with it, get a feeling for it and go, oh, I get how this works. Right. You know, that's super simple, but really clever and simple at the same time. You know, how did you manage that? So it's starting those conversations.
So since you've kind of pointed this out, could you talk to us about what is kind of on the table?
Sure. So we had our first customer. We built a battery for them. It was a drone, a sort of a quadcopter. So there's 4 arms, and on the end of each arm is actually 2 motors and 2 rotors. So it's a really heavy lifted drone. And in the middle, it connects the 4 arms is a structural battery, and it stops the airframe from going out of alignment. It keeps the airframe stable in flight, so it stops it crashing. And now that we've done that battery, I don't think we'll do it that way ever again. And I think every founder will say, we learned loads. And so we got version 2. And so rather than pay to have, you know, the metal milled and get special stuff done, we're like, let's just 3D print it. And so the battery that I brought with me is version 1. And we are now on version 6. And bearing in mind, we had 10 versions of this before we actually put it in the drone. It shows you we've taken an iterative approach rather than the waterfall approach. And this is a sandwich panel. You can see a C-section that gives you a large sort of edge, which allows you to do a really good bond with this panel will be a shear panel. And you would then put holes in it so you could bolt into, which is great. And you know, you stop ingress of water and dust and things like that. And inside I said there would be some cylindrical cells. So if I pop it open, so the shear panel, take it off, you need to connect the cells electrically. So cells in parallel make a module, modules in series make a battery pack. And so we call that buzz bars, connecting modules in series. And so if I take this out, you will see that underneath is some cylindrical cells, and that forms the core material. And these are real cells, so no licking them.
Sorry, and so that, if you like, that is the power. Is that where the energy source is?
Yeah. And so,
and do you make that?
No, I buy these, and anyone can buy these. Right. They're off the shelf. These are Molicel P42 alphas. They're made in Taiwan. It was Molicel is a University of British Columbia spin out in the 80s, bought by, you know, a big Asian cement factory or owner, and this is their sort of trying to balance their books between cement being, you know, carbon emitting, and then batteries, you know, not being quite so bad. And so, yeah, the battery technology, cylindrical cells, so none of this is bonded so that we can show people how it goes together. But yeah, the cells go in, then you connect them. Let me show you. So what this is what we call a fuse bar. And the idea is that this connects cells in parallel. So the module together. So it takes one cell, connects it to the cell next to it electrically, and you can see fuse arms in it. So the cross-section area allows you to act as a fuse, and then we use laser welded connections to get a really high conductive join, and then we put those modules together in series to make a battery pack. The connection, so here you can see sort of the fuse bars are in the copper color, and then the silver color is the bus bar, and that connects the modules in series, so the positive of one end to the negative of the other module. And then the bus bars do a number of things, and actually patent pending, because it stops thermal runaway propagating to neighbouring cells, which is quite unique. NASA can do that, and then it allows end plate cooling. So you can if you can keep cells at an optimal temperature, you can get the best performance.
Right.
And if you've got the best performance, you don't need as many of them.
Right.
And so therefore you save weight. And so being able to end plate cool is key to battery packs. And so, yeah, and then there's a technical term, jiggery pokery, and how to basically put it all together. Because there's 5 characteristics that we are balancing. So mechanical, electrical, thermal, safety, and control. And yeah, there's just a bunch of balancing things that you can choose to do or not to do, and it depends on the user's requirements. And I suppose this is part of being a founder. What's your USP? And first, it's safer, lighter, stronger, scalable. But then it's taken a long time to be able to get to those 4 words. But behind that is a whole plethora of research. So if somebody interrogates one of them, you can point to the research and say, well, it means this. This is how I've demonstrated it in the lab. This is how it's been validated, often independently, because, people don't trust me. I don't understand why. But any small business needs that independent validation, really, to make it credible. And you can change the balance between the mechanical, electrical, and thermal properties, depending on the use case that you want. On the ground, you've got air temperatures sort of 20 degrees in summer, unless you're in Saudi Arabia, a bit warmer. But then if you're in aerospace, you've got much lower temperatures. So you go from trying to heat a pack to trying to cool a pack. And, and if you're in an aircraft, sometimes you're taking off and sometimes you're landing, sometimes you're cruising. And so that temperature is varying. So how does your pack deal with those variations in what would be a perfectly normal environment for it?
So as you've grown the business and developed it over the past few years, I mean, what has given you the sleepless nights?
Yeah, I've not had a sleepless night.
That's good.
That's quite amazing.
Yeah.
We have had someone say that before.
Yes.
Who actually woke in the night due to excitement, which I think is very positive. But a lot of people have said about the sleepless nights and kind of the stress of having a business.
So it's 24/7. There is it's a deliberate effort to switch off. And I tried it last summer, and actually the only time I can do it is at Christmas, when the emails have dropped because everyone goes on Christmas holidays, and then I can, basically I bought a new work phone, transferred it across, turned it off, and put it in the drawer, because that's what the wife told me to do, and it worked a treat. But it doesn't mean there's no stress. It just means, so I enjoy my physical exercise. Right. And when I've got a particularly knotty problem, I go for a run, and I will, I'll kick in the subconscious as I'm running and let it mull over the problem. And then I often finish a run with an answer, or at least a way to approach the problem from a different perspective. So it's not it's a solvable problem, and it could be a complex problem, or it could be a wicked problem. So sometimes you can get the balance right to solve to get it right for the end user, but sometimes it's just a wicked problem that's unsolvable, and you just got to change the balance. And sometimes you just need to think, actually, I just can't get to the end state right now. Yeah. What I need to understand is what is the strategy I need to employ to get me to the next step that's closer to a solution. Do I need to employ someone? Do I need to speak to a friend who's more knowledgeable in one of these areas? Do I need to do more research in this area? Sometimes it's just, have I looked up the wrong terminology? So when I started out, I was looking at multifunctional materials, and it brought me to NASA and the CubeSats and that sort of chemistry embedded in the composites. And actually what I needed to do was look at cylindrical cells and the work that was done there, and take it from just a different perspective. And so it's been able to take a step back and see the woods from the trees and go, actually, I need to go that way, not this way.
And you get those insights by going on a run, doing physical exercise. That's the thing that frees the mind, that enables it to make those synaptic connections.
Yeah, it is. It is for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. And running more than cycling, actually, if I
Yeah.
was to think about it. Swimming is probably a bit better than cycling as well. Cycling, you're concentrating on, not getting run over. Running, you can just be in the
Potholes and grit on the road.
Exactly.
Yes.
Avoid the pothole, get run over with a bus.
Yes.
But I live near a nature reserve, and that's a deliberate choice.
Yeah.
So that I can just, switch off. And switch off means switch off the conscious, and then the subconscious just goes wild.
Yes. What about colleagues? Have you got senior colleagues with whom you'll just go for a coffee or a drink or something like that and sort of work through these issues?
So yes, I have a great friend who's my old boss, and now part owner of the business. If we'll go to a drive, so let's say we're going to an exhibition to see what the latest thing is, we will have a technical to-do list as long as your arm after every car journey, because we're like, oh, what about this and what about that, and, probably do that, and it just goes on and on and on. And we should record it because it's great, but if we recorded it, we're overwhelmed by the things that we need to go and do when we finish the car journey. And so just bouncing ideas off people. And this is why a diversity for me is a big enabler. People with different experiences coming together to see the same problem through a different lens. And I think that's for me, it's hugely valuable. And I actively look for people who are not like me. I don't need another me. I need somebody else.
Yeah.
I was going to ask about when you were a stay-at-home kind of dad, a parent. What was the transition like going, military to stay-at-home parent to business owner? Because that's quite a kind of, it's not very linear at all.
I can I can see your point. Yeah. So being a stay-at-home dad was great fun, and then the kids went to school and I was bored. And then as we came back from Nigeria, the kids went to school, and so it was easy to find a job. It was easy to find a place to work, time to work. When the kids are at school, a bit harder. I still don't understand why the school day and the working day haven't sort of come together at the same time. It's a bit weird because you need childcare otherwise, which is super expensive, and and so I've just had to be flexible because my wife is the main income earner. She's as flexible as she can be, which is hugely helpful, but I need to pick up the slack and do the bits where she is inflexible because of her work. And so it's I think people often sort of default to it's be a founder or be a sort of father and husband, and actually you can do it all, but not all at the same time. You may be able to fit it in the same day, but the whole day it's doing all three, but that's a consecutive, not concurrent activity. So I can get the kids ready for school, and then I can take them to school, and then I can come to work. I can't do both. I'm not a multitasker. And then, I'll have to go and pick the kids up after school. And today's not my turn, thankfully. Thursday's my turn. But your diary just has to, there's tools to help work with that, diaries, electronic diaries you can share. It's tough, but it can be done.
Yeah. And is that something that you've built into the kind of, I don't know if it's the culture of the company, but the way in which you work, does that facilitate, when you talk about like the diversity point, parents as well working around those kind of school hours, which never match a working day, or school holidays, and kind of all of the juggling that comes with that?
Yeah. I mean, I trust the guys that work with me. These are my friends, and they're not, one, they don't get paid much, but if they did get paid, what they're used to being paid, I still trust them, because I don't measure the time they spend doing the work. I measure the outcomes that are achieved from the work. And when you think like that, then it's much easier to just let them get on with it. This is what needs to be achieved. These are the constraints around it being achieved, i.e. the deadline is Paris. We've not got a big budget, is, £100. And what we need is something that's visually amazing. And they're like, and these are the messages we're trying to get across. All right, let me deal with that. And how they divide their time to achieve that, that's an input. I'm not really bothered about that. I'm just trying to measure outcomes.
But that goes back to Talitha's point, is the culture of the company, really. You've obviously set a culture where it is the outcome. Doing 12 hours a day at your desk or doing the same work 4 hours a day at home or however it is not relevant. What's relevant is, as you say, is the output. Have you achieved X? Have you achieved Y?
Yeah.
So you've set that culture, really.
Yes, I have. And it comes from my military background, I suspect. And it's honesty, integrity, and collaboration. Right. We're a tech business, it's super expensive. You need certified batteries if you want to sell them. That's expensive. And if you want to make them, you need to have you need to be ISO accredited. And there's a whole bunch of stuff around that that's even more expensive. Add a couple of knots to the end. And so you've got to be collaborative. And if you want to be a really good collaborative partner, you need to be honest. And that's, not just saying what's good, but saying what's bad as well. I'm, just being honest. I'm worried about my IP. I'm worried it's going to be stolen. And it could come from a collaborating partner. It could come from my next hire. Because there'll be a point where I just run out of friends and family. And there's a point at which I'll have to hire a stranger. And how do I recruit someone that shares my values? And that's the key.
And how do you do that?
It's a good question. I've not done it yet. But I think the key...
But even with friends and family, because you can have friends and family who you get on with, but it doesn't mean they're going to be good people to work with.
Yeah, the people... So I think for recruitment, whether it be friends and family or someone else, it's about values. It's about shared values. And if you're clear about the values that you have and promote, then you will attract people with the same values. It's when people are attracted by either financial reward or even just the flexibility because, you guys just do 9 till 3 and I can pick up the kids, Actually, are they sharing the same values as me, which is I'm measuring outcomes, or are they just thinking, do you know what, it's just convenient? Because it comes back to our vision, and our vision is to decarbonise transport, and I want people who are committed to decarbonising transport, and that's who I want to work with. And so having the vision and the values really helps because we know what we are, and then it's just a beacon to those people who are like me who want to do the same thing. And when I say like me, I mean have the same shared values. Not I don't want to recruit somebody just like me. Yeah, I'm a nightmare. I just have my wife.
Yeah. And in terms of the stresses of running the business, is cash flow the biggest stress, really?
Yeah. Sometimes I think, if I just had the money, I could just concentrate on growing the business and, solving the problems. But I think that's just part of being a founder and, a startup. Can you imagine putting your hand in your pocket and, handing over £50,000 to a stranger who's got a good idea and you don't really know? Do you need it all at once? What are you going to do with that money? How do I know it's been spent wisely and you haven't just gone down the pub? So I get it from the other side. And so our first angel investor, I asked to be chairman, and I said, if you and your friends, other angel investors, are worried about the governance of the company and how the money is going to be spent, you should just be chairman, because that I don't want to. You have those conversations because they trust you, and you hold me to account at the board meetings. Yeah. And what I'll do on a monthly basis is tell you what we've done. And and when you have these conversations with people on podcasts, you get the snapshot of what's really worked. And if there's 3 things that have really worked, there's 30 things I've done to get those 3 things. So 27 things have not worked. And so that 9 to 9-to-1 ratio. It can't be far away.
Yeah. Is that 9-to-1 or 27 things haven't worked yet, or 27 things that you've tried and won't work, out of interest?
You haven't worked. Yeah, I'd say just stop, don't do that again. So one of the big lessons I've taken from the military is if it works, you should do more of it. And if it hasn't worked, stop doing it.
Right.
It just hasn't worked. I'm banging my head against this wall because, I want to get to the other side. So I could keep on banging my head against that wall to make the door, or I could stop banging my head and open the door.
Yeah.
And, if it hasn't worked, that's okay. You've failed. And just the failure, the real failure would be not recognizing that hasn't worked and, opening the door.
So do you think your military background's made you probably a better entrepreneur, or better prepared for entrepreneurship?
It's certainly given me some of the key tenets of being a founder. Time management, military planning, sort of outcomes-based or effects-based approach. Sometimes, if you're not 5 minutes early to a meeting, you're already late. That doesn't really work because people are, meeting changeovers are right on time. Running late, I really struggle with that, which doesn't really help. Timing really is ingrained in me now. So there's, I think people would be, if I wasn't in the military and looked in, you would think it was quite authoritarian. That there's orders and you must do that. And actually, the military's, I don't think it's like that at all. There's a point at which you just need to follow orders because there's a time sensitive and there's a context where that's really, really, really important. And you have the trust of the people to be able to give those instructions or orders. But mostly it's about mission command. It's about delegating responsibility to the lowest common denominator and giving them the information to make decisions. And if you want to have really agile, really successful and profitable company, why would you not do that? Why would you not, if you're hiring somebody, let them make that decision because they've got that experience and the values and you've communicated the context in which they're operating to make the best decision. And then everyone's making progress at the same time.
I think one of the things that founders find really hard though is to let go, is to delegate. They might have people on board, take people, whether they recruit them or their friends and family, but to let John over there make that decision or whatever, because that's the better way of doing it. But it's quite hard if it's your idea, your business, you've set it up, to actually say, no, I'm going to trust John to develop that or whatever it is. That's a challenge to many owners.
Yeah, and to me, absolutely. I mean, it was my idea. I went to university to follow up. I started the business on the back of it. And I've got a patent on the idea I had in 2018. And now I don't lead the technology development. It's my job as a CEO to build a business. And so I've entrusted my friend to look after that technology. And he's really clever. And that's okay. And we can talk about it. And we can have different opinions to come to the same outcome. And that's okay too. Great teams aren't defined about when things are going well. Great teams are defined about when things are going badly. And that's when you find out if you've built a great team or not.
And where do you see the business going in, 5 years or 10 years? I know you've mentioned about vision already, but how do you see it growing and where would you like it to get to?
So I set myself 10 years to be £1 billion valued business. And so, that's 200 million revenues because it's 5x in 10 years. And I think that's really helpful because then it lays a kind of financial path. And so if I double revenues from year 1 to year 9, then I get to 200 million. Okay, so, and then you can start to hang the framework off that. How many kilowatt hours of batteries do you need to produce to get a revenue of 200 million? Okay, if I'm doing that many, which markets am I doing that in? So where am I geographically? What sectors am I in? And then you can start to look at, where are the growing markets, where are the established markets, what are the sectors, aerospace, defence, motorsport, maritime, rail. There's a whole bunch of stuff. And it's like, right, okay. And so it's great to have that great vision, but when there's three of us, you're a kiddie in a sweetie shop. You want to eat it all, and you're still choosing. And actually, you need to deliver because you need the cash flow.
Yeah.
And so there's the current place is just be focused. We must deliver because we can have all these great ideas. We can deliver in the lab. If the money's not gone in the bank, we've ran out, and then company end. I don't want to. Investors are great, and the investors we've got are absolutely brilliant. Could not have done it without them, but I don't want to rely on them forever. They've entrusted me with their money. I want to give them their money and 10x back, because they've been trusting of a stranger, and I think the company can be worth so much more than that. And a lot of people understand the value when you put pound, shilling, and pence on it. But if I was to think about decarbonising transport, what do I think that means? And that's, and in today's climate, that's quite a difficult topic, because people are saying, actually, you're going to bankrupt the country if we follow this green agenda. And actually, I think that's a load of rubbish. I think that not only can you decarbonise transport, I think you can make money from it and get high-tech jobs. And I think you can do it at a sovereign level or national level as well. And so in my head, I would see structural batteries underpinning every battery electric and hybrid electric mode of transport, including logistics in the world. I think of ARM when I think of structural batteries, and it's about enabling others to solve their problems and not being greedy about it, so that it's cheaper to just license the technology than it is to buy us out and then confine it to a certain sector or geography. And that's the path I'm trying to navigate.
A busy 10 years ahead.
Yeah, wait to find what else is in my head.
Out of interest, do you see I'm looking at the structural battery here. Do you see, over the next 5 years or 10 years, do you see the technology that underpins that changing substantially?
So we can use any cylindrical cell, 18650, 21700, 4680, it's a core material. And that means when all these billions and billions of dollars are invested in the chemistry research, it'll go into cylindrical cell. So when you make your transport application, if that's the size of battery and there's a new battery cylindrical cell, actually the form factor of your pack hasn't changed. You can just incorporate the new technology. But what does a new chemistry mean? So if a new chemistry is really fast charging, that's great. I mean, imagine have a battery, you're in a car, you drive to a service station, and it doesn't take you 20 minutes to top up. It takes you 2 minutes. Just like filling a car with fuel, you just fast charge the battery pack. So suddenly you don't need a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack, because all these service stations are in place where you can fast charge your car. Does that mean that battery heats up and you need to cool it quicker? Because that's one of the things, you fast charge, it heats up. Or is this new technology one that limits the heat? So that's the innovation in the chemistry. And if that's the innovation in the chemistry, I can change the design to get more mass out, because the way we cool it, we just make bits thinner, and that means it'd be lighter. So it will change, and it's this balance of the mechanical strength to the thermal, and then the electrical bit. So yes, it will always change. And the idea is that it can keep pace with the new developments in battery chemistry, in conductivity, electrical conductivity, thermal conductivity. There's not many materials that are electrically insulating, thermally conductive, or vice versa. But that would when they become available and at cheaper costs, we could incorporate them. Or graphene and sort of things like that conduct even better than sort of copper, aluminium, gold, silver. You can incorporate them, and that's just keeping abreast of those changes. I love my job.
A final question from me, really. I understand obviously the benefits of batteries, if you like. I mean, in vehicles and so on. But one of the things I've read about is that to produce the chemicals for batteries, lithium, for example, that in itself is not a green process. It's a very heavy process in terms of natural resources. I read somewhere that a ton of lithium takes 1 million tons of a million litres of water. I don't know if I've got the numbers right, but something like that to extract. And therefore, although the car itself might be green, to make the car isn't. In terms of what you're doing, is that also looking at that side of things, if you like, the production of the fuel cells, if I can call it that?
The energy that goes in to make the battery.
Yeah. Better put. Yes.
I think it's always worth knowing what that looks like. Yeah. Just as if our vision is to decarbonise transport, are we inadvertently increasing the carbon emissions because we've reduced the CO2 emissions from the car? But so yes, I do keep a track. A lot of the energy that goes into extracting the raw materials to make the batteries. So you look at Australia, for example, and you take the mining trucks that can carry 300 tons. They're diesel, and that's what takes it out the ground, and takes it to the place where it's going to be mined or refined, I suppose. So what happens if those electric trucks or those mining trucks were electric? Right. How would so if you go further up the chain, you start to the energy required would be greener for that raw material. So one of the things is, actually, should we decarbonise mining trucks? Is that, if we're going to, in the vision of decarbonising transport, if I go further up the sort of the chain of raw materials, will have a bigger effect on the vision. Yeah. And so I think we would, and there's less people to target. It's just the other side of the world, and it's a really expensive airfare. And so one day I'll get there and be able to do it. And anyone who is doing it now, that is brilliant. I am super excited for them. I'm not here to take the whole pie at all. I just want to decarbonise transport and help anyone else who's trying to do that at the same time. I just want to leave the planet in a better place for my children.
Yeah, very worthy. Well, thank you very much for being such an excellent podcast guest.
Thank you.
It's really good to meet you and hear about the Structural Battery Company. And at least now I think we understand what a structural battery is and what it does.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.